by and do not reflect those of the Evening Rush Network. Viewers' discretion is advised.
What's going on? What's going on, everybody? This is another episode of Think and Grow with Vette Green. I am so excited tonight because I am bringing to you Dr. Cooper Levette and Michelle Renee, and we are here to talk about something that is not talked about very often, especially in the Black community, and that is sex. So viewer discretion shall be advised. This is an adult conversation, no judgment zone here. So if you are not open to the conversation that we are about to have, then you're going to miss out. So thank you guys so much for coming to the stage. Dr. Cooper, if you can let everyone know who you are, that'll be great. Hello,
Sure,
Daryl.
yes.
How are you?
Yes, I'm Dr. Cooper Lovett. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and sex therapist, as well as a certified tantric healer. And I have a private practice, a group practice, holistic, new creation psychotherapy services located in the South Metro Atlanta area.
Thank you so much. And Michelle Renee, if you can let our listeners know who you are.
Absolutely. I am Michelle Renee, and I am a Chicago area-based bedroom candy consultant.
Thank you guys so much and welcome. This is a very important, discussed a lot. Was open to talk to us about anything, but it felt like the shame about talking about sex was always around. So it's not something that we talked about. So before we get into today's show, I just want to highlight some women. So today marks National Women's History Month. And I want to just highlight a couple of women. One is Ida B. Wells. Don, if you can bring the picture up so we can just talk about who she is. So Ida B. Wells, they actually have a bridge here for her. She was a woman who spoke out against the lynching of Black men. Now, keep in mind, this was during the time when Black people were not allowed to go certain places. We weren't allowed to have a voice. We weren't allowed to be educated. And she saw what was being done and she spoke out against it. And she's someone that I look up to because I feel like because I'm seeing things that's going wrong in the world, I can relate to what she was doing back in the 1800s. The other person that I want to highlight, if you can bring that picture up, Don, is Miss Dorothy Glover. Man, this woman, she was my kid's god grandmother, and she was a phenomenal person in Lackawanna, New York, where I grew up at. And she did a lot for the community. And keep in mind, you guys, that women were not always allowed to have voices. And what Miss Dorothy Glover did for us, I think she challenged us to want to be better. And I just want to read her bio and just say big ups to Miss Dorothy Glover and rest in peace. They actually have the projects that I grew up in named after her, but she was born in Beaufort, South Carolina in 1942. She moved to Lackawanna with 5 children. One of the children passed away. She was a huge part of what was going on in the Gates Avenue project. She was a tenant council president and also tenant commissioner. She fought for our rights. If there was anything going wrong that we didn't agree with in the projects, we could go to her and she would take that grievement to the any party. She would take it to whatever board it needed to be taken to, but she was the voice for us when we didn't know that we could have a voice. So big ups to Dorothy Glover. I love this lady. She was so sweet. And that smile that you see in this picture, you would always see this smile. So big ups to her. And thank you, Thelma, if you're watching, for giving me the picture and allowing me to just highlight her. Each week, you guys, this month, I'm going to highlight some phenomenal women because I've had some great women in my life to help me, guide me on this journey that I'm on right now. So let's get into it. First, I want to start with you, Dr. Cooper. And we were talking backstage, the 3 of us. So tell me, what is the biggest myth that you find that people have regarding sex?
And as I shared, the biggest myth is that assuming women are having more orgasms than they actually are, or even feeling pleasure more than they actually are, because a lot of women do the disservice to themselves of faking. And I always tell women we are responsible for our own pleasure.
Absolutely. Michelle Renee, what about you when you're dealing with people who are interested in your products or interested in any of your services? What's the biggest myth that you find?
I believe, like we were talking previously, that men are just unteachable. Their egos get in the way of having a really fulfilled sexual life with their partner. And maybe that's why they don't stay with one, maybe, you know what I'm saying? So that whole ego gets in their way, I believe.
Yeah, so. I would agree as well. Dr. Cooper Lovett, what are some of the services that you offer to couples or someone that comes to you that is having a problem in the bedroom?
Yeah, so we definitely, me specifically, provide sex therapy services. Sex therapy helps with those who have I guess you say a clinical diagnosis, though I'm not a fan of diagnosing as it relates to a sexual issue. And so we do mental health therapy as it relates to sex. And then in addition to that, now that I've added the tantric healing work to my practice, I also can make it where couples can schedule a tantra session, where it's a table session where they can become more connected from a more spiritual perspective. So they have a couple of options with therapy and with the tantric healing work as well, or a combination thereof.
Do you find that people are not very open to therapy in regards to sex?
Yes, very much so. It's taboo, and so a thing that I learned I just talked about this the other day in one of the CEU trainings that I had conducted, that as a sex therapist, I was told that we talk about the things that happen in the dark and we make it comfortable. For people who find it to be uncomfortable, we make it more comfortable for them. So the more comfortable I am, the more comfortable my clients can feel and even discussing and talking about it. But initially, there is a lot of hesitancy around that. And naturally so. It's a taboo topic, number one. Number two, it's incredibly uncomfortable. And so I make the uncomfortable become comfortable in that context.
Yeah. Michelle Renee, when you're dealing with clients, do you find that they're uncomfortable speaking to you about, asking about different products that you may offer or different services that you may offer as well? They're not as open?
Yes, they're not. They're not open at all. So when I do in-home parties or virtual parties, and we kind of celebrate it and do it around games to kind of lighten it up a little bit. And then I do a raffle and say anything you ask, ask anything. And so as the evening goes on, they become more and more comfortable and ask more and more questions, because you have to do something to break that stigma, But yeah, they are very shy. And usually at parties, you have a wide age sometimes, which is also part of trying to break that barrier.
Yeah. What, Dr. Cooper Lovett, what would you be able to help someone with if they came to you and said, well, I've never had an orgasm and I don't know what the problem is? What would you assist them with?
Well, first and foremost, we always have to rule out medical, right? So, like, have you talked to a physician about this? Is there something going on in that space? If not, then we realize it can be mental and or emotional, especially, one of my specialties is sexual trauma history and helping women redefine or refine their sexual selves after sexual trauma. And so sometimes those things may have an impact. And so the point is to get comfortable first and foremost with self. I am a heavy promoter of self-pleasure. We'll talk about it all the time. If women cannot understand, yes, we cannot teach our partners how to pleasure us if we don't even know how to pleasure ourselves. And so I often say that that's an area for sure of exploration. Explore yourself. What turns you on? What doesn't? What helps you to achieve orgasm? Because most times women, when they can achieve orgasm, typically is by themselves. And so I tell them to start with self.
Yeah, growing up, when I started talking to my kids about sex, I told them that you need to know what you like, pleasure yourself before you go out and have sex, because you need to teach that person how to pleasure you. And I found that some men think that it's a one size fits all, and that's not true, right, Michelle Renee? It's not a one size fits all. How would you help someone that came to you and asked you, well, what can we do to spice up the bedroom? And a lot of men are not there. A lot of men are intimidated by toys or products outside of what they're bringing into the bedroom.
Absolutely. So first of all, I do talk to whoever it is, either it's the woman or the man, about like, how do they feel about toys? If they're like, no about a toy, then I step back and go into romance. Okay. And so offer them other products. And for the woman, if she's like having problems with orgasms, then I suggest some of the products that would help the clitoris become more aroused quicker, because that's one of the main problems that we have, is that it takes a woman longer to become aroused than it does a man. So sometimes before you even get aroused, it's over. So I would go with that. But those toys, I try to explain to them, you have to do whatever feels good, and start off slow, but do it together, So I do everything. I'm like, let's do the blindfolds. If that's not good, if the toys aren't for you, let's do a blindfold. Let's get a swing, let's get some edible paint. It's so many things that would
spice
make
it up.
That. Oh, absolutely.
And you don't have, and there should be no judgment, because you're pleasuring each other, right? There should be no judgment. Dr.
I
Cooper,
suggest that you do it together,
That's important.
That judgment, because sometimes what I found, if it's one partner bringing something new, then it's like, well, where did you get that from? So if you do it together, like if you go to the therapist together, or if you come shopping with me and I can tell you both at the same time, then you know where they got it from. So
I like that. Dr. Cooper Lovett, you agree?
Oh, for sure. Most definitely. And, couples learn together. I give couples, it's called the yes, no, maybe list. And they go down the list of things that are yeses that they will do or have done. Maybes is like, we haven't tried that, but I'm willing to try it. And those are like just a no-go. But I tell my couples, let's try the yeses and the maybes that y'all haven't done before. It's like a kind of having a smorgasbord of sex things to do. It's fun.
Because it should be fun. It should be pleasurable. Exactly. It should be something where you're laid out like, yes, you know, that's how, like that's how it should be. Yeah.
That's how it should be. Yes. Yes.
The Don had put a question in there. Well, he said that's the problem. And Don, you agree a lot of times that it's the men's ego. Being a man, is it your ego that keeps you blocked? Would you agree as well? He may not be able to hear me, but do you guys so I find it interesting that both of you guys deal with couples, but you also deal with women who are single or men who are single. Who do you find has the biggest, I guess, barrier up as far as exploring sexual pleasures or exploring different things as far as sex? Dr. Lovett, we can start with you.
Yeah, married women. I already knew the answer.
Married women.
Yes,
really?
Absolutely. Single women have this, I think it's more of a freedom there or something. It's just different, you know, because married women is kind of like, I'm married. It's like that sexual self gets shut down.
Like they don't need to do anything.
Yeah, or it's like, oh, I'm a wife now. I don't know. It's just, especially the transition. Now, some people feel more free in it, but a lot of people feel more restricted in it, you know, especially, and don't start adding kids to the mix. That's a whole other, like women have told me they don't even feel like a sexual being anymore after they become a mom.
After having a baby.
You know, yeah. And that was my worry after my son. Yeah. See, I was worried about the same thing. And at first, yes, but then over time, it's like, oh no, like girl, we need to get back in there again. But a lot of women, but I realize a lot of women feel like I don't see myself as this sexual person any longer. Right. Yeah, definitely.
And there's losing that. And I experienced that after I had my kids, after I had all of them. You go through a point in your life where you don't feel sexual anymore. He said, okay, I need to sit on the couch, where you don't feel you don't feel beautiful anymore. And there's things that we can do. We just have to be open to doing them, right?
Absolutely.
So Michelle Renee, if someone came to you and asked, I'm interested in a toy that will bring me pleasure, bring my wife pleasure or something like that, what would you advise them?
Well, it depends on if he wanted to be a part of that pleasure. That would be the first question, because we have couple toys, but definitely there is a toy, the womanizer, that is for women. It's clitoral stimulation. That is like popping. But if you're trying to be together, then there's something that we call We Vibe, which is a 2-in-1 type of toy, and you both can enjoy it. So honestly, the first question is always trying to understand what the goal is, not necessarily giving her pleasure, but if he wants to be a part of it, or is he just giving her a toy and say, go play, so.
I want to transition over to something, a very important topic, and you touched on it, Dr. Cooper Levette, hypersexuality. A lot of times that happens when women are sexually abused. Part of your practice deals with sexual trauma. What do you find is the hardest or most challenging thing when you're dealing with someone with sexual trauma? Because what I've found is that the women that I know who have experienced any type of sexual trauma, they have lost interest in sex.
Yeah. Because they have now, because I got whether introduced or it got reintroduced into my life, is now I've equated sex with hurt. Sex with exploitation, sex with, all the things that are negative about it. Even though sex is good, it feels good, it's pleasure, or it should feel that way. But when it's a sexual trauma, it takes that off and says, nope, sex hurts. So I want no parts of it. So it's helping her to kind of rediscover or redefine what sex is for her, empowering her and say that you have the control, you have the power of what you want it to be for yourself. But it takes some time because we have to go through the trauma. For some people, trauma narrative is incredibly difficult because you have to go through with a fine-tooth comb the experience that you actually had. It's kind of like a testimony in church. By speaking it out, I'm delivering myself from it. It's no longer holding me captive. So that's the first step. But after that, it's really helping them to redefine what sex is for them, and also figuring out what turns them on and what doesn't outside of that box of sex is bad. Sex is painful. Sex makes me feel low. So it's to do the reverse and important to them to still empowerment to say that I am responsible for my own pleasure. I can have a relationship with my sexual self because it starts with self first and foremost before I can even share myself with anyone else.
Yeah. I read that sexual trauma is one of the most challenging things to overcome. And a lot of times it doesn't happen. And sex is, when I did the promotion for this, I said, what do you know about sex? A lot of us just think it's the act. It's just a man and a woman, or two, whatever ball you roll. That's how it is, but it's so much more.
It really is.
Foreplay is huge, and it's something that helps women, because a lot of times we're in our mind, right, Michelle, Renee, where we were talking about this backstage, that we can be, in the midst of having sex, but our minds are racing. But there's things that we can do to help that, right? Come back to the present. And you were talking about that, Michelle, Renee. Elaborate on that when you're trying to get out of your head.
So one of the things, because I am studying, I just passed my exam to be a certified clinical sexologist. So one of the things that I now teach my clients is meditation and the practice of being present in the moment. So you have to learn how to make your brain come back. So that's what I try to tell them, because it is all mental. And to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Cooper said, I myself, being transparent, I'm a survivor of childhood trauma, sexual. And so that whole mindful thing, it kind of goes hand in hand, because I have had to literally speak to myself in my brain that I am, at that time, I'm 40 years old. Now, this happened when I was 12. So even today, I have to sometimes speak to myself and say, Michelle, you're 40. Michelle, this is your husband. Michelle, you're good. And so it is definitely a mind thing. So you have to take all those tools from a therapist, because the toys and all of that it is so mental. Your brain has so much to do with it. So I definitely teach mindfulness, and that's how I tell my clients that that's what you have to practice, and you're going to have to do it, 21 to 30 days in order for it to become a habit. And that is, you just learn how to come back. So
absolutely,
you agree. You can add to that, Dr. Cooper Levette. I love the way this conversation is flowing. Thank you so much, Michelle Renee, for being transparent about that, because I know a lot of women who have been sexually abused, and being transparent. I was molested, raped, and it does get hard, because you have to get out of your head and tell yourself that you're safe, and that this is the biggest. It's all right to feel good.
Yeah,
it's all right.
I learned from one of my therapists that my body has a memory.
Yep,
and
body keeps score.
Yeah, I didn't know that, so it's not just even in your mind all the time. It's like your body has memory. So when you get touched sometimes, that triggers certain things. So I applaud Dr. Cooper, because it is definitely needed when women, as women, when we go through that trauma, even as children, you don't, that doesn't go away.
It doesn't. It leaves a huge impression. Like you said, the body does keep score. It's actually a book called The Body Keeps Score, all about trauma and all those things. Yes, it's a really good book. It's a really good book. And a lot of my clients who've gone through some trauma, I always mostly suggest.
Could you
it's
put
called,
it in the
Sure.
chat?
Sure. I'll put it in the chat. Yes. The Body Keeps Score. And it's many things. And even with, that's why I got into tantric healing work, because when people think of tantra, they assume like, oh, you can have sex for hours. It's so much more than that. And it's working with the person's energy, because when things happen in our lives, our auric field shifts as well. So we working with people's energy, creating energy and releasing pain through pleasure. And so it works very well with survivors of sexual abuse and assault. And, you know, I've been working in this work for a long time. So I was like, oh, well, I can add the extra component there for women in their womb spaces, because that's what it's about, our womb space, and healing that in addition to the emotional and the mental and also the physical as well, because they're all intertwined with one another.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Lovett, do you do telehealth?
Yes, I do. That's primarily what I do right now. I haven't seen anybody in person in a couple of years due to COVID. Hopefully I can get back in the office, but right now it's all telehealth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before we take our break, I just want you guys to let everybody know where they can find you, where your websites are, if you are interested in any of the products. And as Michelle Renee was saying, it's not just toys that Bedroom Candies have. That lipstick, that beautiful red lipstick that she's wearing, that's actually one of the products. Don said he will be signing up. So make sure you guys check these women out if you are someone who is struggling in the sex area. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. We all have our down times, I'll say. But there's things that we can do to help get them back up. You know what else I want to talk about? Something that it works my nerves. Is it really the penis size? I mean, like, is it really? I say no. It doesn't matter. You can have a 12-inch and don't know what to do with it, and you think you're doing something. So, what do you guys think? Oh, okay. So what is considered too big or too small? It's what you're doing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's that too, but it also is the size of the vaginal walls. I mean, because it's not so much as that it doesn't matter, it's the compatibility of it, you know, like, so, because if that case, there are men that are way too endowed for certain women. So I think it's, again, that communication and talking and learning different positions to work with what you got, you know. So.
Dr. Cooper,
absolutely.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree, because I think it is contextual. And I remember having a client tell me specifically that she would prefer a penis of 6 inches or less, because anything over that is too much for her.
Right.
It's relative.
Because it can become painful.
Yes.
And sex shouldn't be painful.
Exactly. And especially if it's like a woman who struggled with uterine fibroids, that's a whole other thing in itself, or endometriosis or any other reproductive issues that may come up.
And that's very high with African American women.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to do a show on that. I struggled with, I had endometriosis and fibroid tumors. Yeah, I was 28 years old. I know women, when we were in high school, had fibroid tumors, and it's something that we struggle with, and we don't know what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's something going on there, correlation with that. And that's a whole, I can go on that for a long time, because I struggle with them too.
You ladies are gonna have to come back. Don, we can go to break. You guys, make sure you stay tuned to Think and Grow with Vette Green. Come with your questions. We have Dr. Cooper Lovett and we have Michelle Renee on here to answer any questions you have. We're going to debunk those myths about sex. Okay, it's time to talk adult sex. It's time to talk about what's really going on in the bedroom. Okay, sometimes those may be fake. So tonight, if you didn't tune in or you didn't get some of these nuggets, don't blame me when he or she laying there and you.
Looking to podcast shows and do not know where to start? The Evening Rush Network can help you with that. Call us at 929-441-2417 or email us at theeveningrushnetwork@gmail.com for dates and prices. We got you for all your podcast needs. The Evening Rush Network. Tune in, subscribe, and share.
So I want to ask both of you ladies, how did you get started in this space? And we'll start with you, Dr. Cooper Lovett. And I love that she comes from Buffalo, New York, which is like the city. I come from Lackawanna. It's a small town outside of Buffalo, New York. So, and you are an African-American therapist. So I'm so happy to have you on here because I want to always highlight people that look like me to show the people who are listening that look at these women. Look at these beautiful women. It's possible. It is possible.
Yes, it is.
Dr. Cooper Lovett, tell us how you got started.
Yeah, so I was an undergrad at University of Buffalo. I was a psychology major, and I remember taking a class on the biopsych of sex and sexuality. I've always been like a brain nerd. I should have been a neuroscientist in another life, maybe, but I said, oh, how does sex work and how does it work with brain chemistry? It turned me on all the way. And I just love talking about sex. I was always comfortable talking about it, even though I was the shy, quiet girl in school. People are like, so surprised. But I said, I was one of those people like introverted extrovert. But, I reached out to the governing body. It's called ASECT, which oversees sex educators, sex therapists, and sex counselors. And so I reached out to them in my undergraduate career saying like, hey, how can I become a sex therapist? What do I have to do? And so she's like, your best bet is either go to a sex therapy program or enroll in a marriage and family therapy program. That's when I started doing my research as a marriage and family therapist. It fit with my worldview of being a systems thinker. Everything is relational, relationship based. And so that's kind of how I fell in love with the therapy, marriage and family therapy. And the sex therapy was just my stepping stone to get to where I want to be. And then the Tantra obviously is just fit with everything else I was already doing.
Well, I definitely thank you for your contribution.
Yes, thank you.
It's always nice to see women who are out here doing it and helping other women and men as well. Absolutely. What about you, Michelle Renee? What made you get started? What got you started with Bedroom Candy?
Well, the easy answer is I enjoy sex. That's the easy answer. And Bedroom Candy in that industry itself just opens you up to so many different ways to express yourself. And our mission and our goal is to remove the stigma from sex. So it's been 2 years now and I love it. So I got started to help other people enjoy sex and find their pleasure from it and not be embarrassed about not being satisfied. Raise your hand, say something, So that's how I got started, wanting to help.
Yeah. If you guys want to call in and ask some questions, the number is down there. Come on and call in, ask. These ladies are here. This is a non-judgment zone. This one of the, and I like how you said we have to remove that stigma that sex is bad. And many of us believe that sex is bad because we've been traumatized or we've never enjoyed it. I know women who are, in their 70s and 80s who have never enjoyed sex. And I think about, my own sex life and I'm like, you should enjoy it. Like it's something, it's a release of, it's like a release sometimes. Dr. Cooper Lovett, what do you find is one of the hardest things that people have in their lives as far as sex, the challenges that they face as far as their sexuality?
Well, like I said, pleasure is definitely one thing. Even when you start to get into sexual, I hate to use the word disorders, something about that. I just don't like that word. But sexual disorders like anorgasmia, arousal issues, erectile dysfunction issues. Those are the top 3 that I get into, and sexual compulsion as well. Inappropriateness as it relates to overly working with sex workers. that includes exotic dancers as well, porn, like those types of things, because those come in a lot as well. People have compulsion issues in regards to their sexuality and feel like they don't have control over the decisions they make in regards to sex. But those have been the main things that have come to my practice because, like I said, I specialize in those particular areas. But in the world of sex, there's so many. When I became a sex therapist, I felt like a fish out of water. And mind you, I have been doing therapy since I was 22. So it's been almost 20 years now, almost. So as a sex therapist, though, when I started 6 years ago, I felt like a fish out of water. It was a whole new world. I was like, oh my God, things that people had issues with didn't even come up in my mind to even be an issue or had sexual interest in or what had arousal in. So it's a plethora of different things. But those three things, the inorgasmic issues, arousal issues, and erectile dysfunction are the main three that I've come into the most.
When men have ED, they're suffering with it, and some of them, their ego gets in the way. They don't want to take the medication. What would you suggest for them if they came to you, Michelle Renee? A couple came to you, and the husband was suffering with ED. What would you suggest for them?
Well, and first of all, we have to go back to the physician. Because if it's a medical problem, there is nothing that a toy is going to do to help that. But if it's like occasional, and it's not anything that's tied to medication that he can't stop taking, we can do like cock rings, or we can do the cream that kind of desensitizes the penis a little bit and keep it erect a little longer, I would say. And then at the same time, give the woman some sort of stimulation as well to speed her up, because it may take the man in general 3 minutes to become aroused, but it takes women almost up to 20 minutes to actually become aroused, because there's a distinct difference between being wet and aroused. So that whole scenario with that ED, like, again, first we do have to deal with the medical piece, because it's nothing that can be done with those things. But the cock ring does help.
What's the difference between aroused and wet? And either of you can answer that question. What's the difference? Because there a lot. I think when that song that Megan Thee Stallion came out with, WAP, when song came out, it made people believe that it's, WAP all the time. But that doesn't, age comes into play. There's a lot that comes into play. And just because you're wet does not mean you're aroused. It's a natural function that happens with your body. So if and either of you can chime in, what's the difference between being wet and being aroused?
Okay, I was gonna say I'll tip my hat to you, Michelle Renee. But being wet, because sometimes it's just the way our vagina functions. You know what I mean? So sometimes, especially during ovulation, for example, you will be incredibly wet. It's an egg white consistency because you're more in that state. Your vagina is like, hey, we want to have sex so we get pregnant. It's the biological response, depending on where you are in the life cycle. Arousal is something different because there is a physiological difference that the nipples get erect. The vagina, even though they can't see it from the outside, the vagina wall becomes more lengthened. The labia or the vulva becomes more engorged. The clitoris gets erect. Those types of things. That's the arousal response, and so I know, Michelle, you have even more for that with the two.
What you were talking about as far as
it's
the clitoris
thing, and
it becomes erect. And I think that's one of the things that shock my clients now, that they're not really familiar with the anatomy of a female. And so that clitoris is kind of really like a little penis. And so the actual clitoris itself is shaped more like a wishbone. And so you have the magic spot in the middle, of course, that's the clitoris, but that whole piece, which is the vaginal wall, that's also the clitoris. And so when you think of, it's like over 8,000 nerve endings that has to be all kicking in order for that woman to become aroused. It's a lot. So that's why I really wish men would be more teachable, so that they could, take that time to make them more aroused. It just takes a little longer. It doesn't mean we won't get there, but
it's like waiting for the stove to heat up to get warm. That pre-warming phase. Give it some time.
Exactly. Now, it's possible to have an orgasm in different sections, and we're talking about the vagina. You have the clitoral orgasm, but you also have space within the vagina that will also allow the woman to orgasm. So, Doctor, I'll start with you, Dr. Cooper Lovett. Expand on that.
Yeah, sure. And women can have orgasms in 12 different ways. And now we can include energy orgasms, which those are the best ones. Yes. Energy orgasms. So that's a whole other level. I feel like you're going to heaven and back. That's a whole other level outside the cell body. So that's a topic in its own.
Do you teach how to get to the energy one?
Oh yeah, I can tell. Yeah, you can have one without the person even touching you. That's the beauty of it. And so, yeah. But yes,
it starts from here, right?
Yeah, it does. And it's the spiritual. It's your spirit having it. That's a whole nother level. So, but yeah, you can have nipple orgasms. You can have an erogenous zone orgasm. And then as it relates to the vulva, you have your A spot orgasms, your U spot orgasms, and like Michelle Renee shared. And yes, the squirting is the A spot activation orgasm, and it's from the Skene's gland. So it's not urine. People are still trying to figure out what it actually is, but it's not urine. So yeah, but and like Michelle Renee shared, the clitoris is much bigger. One of my therapists actually just bought me a vulva puppet because they're quite expensive, but they're so helpful with regards to understanding the female anatomy. And so there's so many ways. It's like the A spot, the U spot. I think I'm missing a couple of them, but there are different ways that you can have a clitoral orgasm even through the vaginal canal, because if the penis is hit or whatever you're using can stimulate not just the vaginal wall, but also the clitoris and where that sits. Yeah, it's so you can have so much fun discovering that.
And let's not forget the G spot.
Yes, the most known spot.
The most known. Well, it's the most known and the most elusive. They all talk about it, but they don't know where it is. So
yeah, it's like they're digging for gold and can never find it.
Yes. And I heard an ignorant man share that the G spot does not exist. It's like, yeah, you may have never found it, and that's probably why you say
right. Now, what is squirting? Elaborate on that. What exactly is squirting? Why does it happen?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. I would love, you try to tell people that it's not urine, but they swear that it is.
You peed on me.
Yeah.
But what I have found personally is that more, it's not like that orgasmic type of thing. It's more of ejaculation, for a female. And that ejaculation is more of a physical, I won't say pounding, but manipulation type of situation, like you're hitting, and I don't know the technical term, the right clinical term as to what is being actually manipulated and massaged at that time, but it's like a physical reaction to something. It's not necessarily that you're all into it and it's like mind blowing like an orgasm. Orgasms are like, oh my God, you get that euphoric type of thing. But but I don't know the definitely. So maybe Dr. Cooper. I don't know what it is, but
because it's so many. Yeah, and like you said, something is being manipulated and or stimulated, because a lot of women can squirt through digital penetration through the fingers, but it depends on the woman, because some women have had squirted from oral sex, receiving oral sex. And so, and it just reminded me, there is a U spot, the urethra spot, because that's where the ejaculate comes out of. Yeah. So that's getting triggered there. You know what I mean? And so it's a lot of different ways. And even, with Tantra work, women squirt sometimes, but it's like a release. you know. And what I found out is that sometimes women who never had that release have some built up stuff in their womb space. And so squirting releases all that stuff out. And sometimes you can get that, you know, one of my girlfriends, my best friend, she told me about there are meditations out there to actually help you squirt on your own. Now I cannot remember the name of it, but I'm going to find it in my notepad and then I'll write it in the private chat so it can be shared.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the services. And I want both of you guys to talk about the services that you offer. Dr. Cooper Lovett, we can begin with you. Just talk to the listeners about the services that you offer.
Sure. Yeah. So definitely I offer, you know, couple, individual and family therapy. In addition to that, also sex therapy. And I do work with couples and I work with polycules as well. So those are those who decide to be polyamorous. I've had couples of 3 and had those as well.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's been, I love that. I love that population too. But definitely doing group work as well. Cause right now I'm doing, you know, a workshop series. We have 2 more left called P prayers or pussy prayers. I guess since this is adult, you know, and so that's been helpful in regard to helping women get in touch with their sexual selves and reclaim their power sexually. And also other types of groups as well for anxiety, depression, etc. So infidelity recovery is also one of my specialties as well with couples and situational violence. Not intimate terrorism, there's a difference. It's just 2 people who don't know how to manage their conflict efficiently versus like terrorism where it's like power control, where someone is overpowering another. Those ones I do not work with.
Okay. And what about you, Michelle Renee? What services do you offer your clients?
Okay, well, I do at-home parties where I come out to your home and show you toys and other items. I do virtual parties online. I do couples parties. I do dungeon parties. If you are familiar with the Real Housewives of Atlanta, when they did that party for Cynthia. So we actually do dungeon parties at Bedroom Candy. And I also do coaching. So I do sexuality coaching as well. So, and that is couples and individuals. So, yes.
Sex is something that, again, it's not talked about. And I'm glad that we are highlighting it today on Think and Grow with Vette Green. There's a lot of nuggets that you ladies dropped. I just want to thank both of you. And if there's anything that you want to leave our listeners with, what would that be? And there's something that you touched on just a moment ago, Dr. Cooper Lovett, is infidelity. That's a lot of people can't come back from infidelity, and it changes it changes the way sex happens between couples. Do you find that with infidelity?
Yes, it does. Big time. Absolutely. It does. And it shifts things because now it's like, I have to redefine what my sex life looks like with you. Now that for those who say they are monogamous, so we're not including polyamory or those who choose to be open, but those where we signed up for monogamy and that happens, it's a huge betrayal. And so it's trying to get reconnected with you even after I've been betrayed. But what you'll find is sometimes people will have sex immediately after that happens because that's the only time they feel close to their partner because they're so pissed and angry. They feel disconnected from them.
Yes. Yes. Makeup sex.
Yep. But it's still, when you get up out of it, it's like, I'm still pissed.
Yeah.
That's the only time I can feel connected to you.
Interesting. What about you, Michelle Renee? Infidelity. How do you handle that if someone's like, I don't have a man anymore, or I don't have a woman anymore?
Well, the kind of like the same thing is like we go through homework assignments and a lot of things to try to build that trust back, because that's pretty much what's missing. And so if you're not both willing to, if you're not on the same page, basically, of trying to connect after infidelity, it's not going to work. You both have to be on the same page that you want to try to reconnect. And it's going to take time. And especially for the person who did the betraying, that you can't expect that other person to just want to roll over and give it all. because
Right.
it might not happen.
It's gonna take some time.
It's gonna take time.
Must it start with forgiveness? I would say yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a three. Yeah, it's a 3-part process. Forgiveness
Especially
is one
because
of them.
it's in our mind. When we've been cheated on, it's going over in our mind, and then we're thinking, we're with our partner, and we're thinking, well, was he this sexual with her, or and then it puts you off. It
does.
puts you off. How do you overcome that? Was one of the questions that was presented. How do you overcome that?
I always share my clients there's a 3-part process, right? So you have the trust building process that requires me and my partner. I have the forgiveness process that requires me because it's to set me free. And I have the healing process, which I have to allow myself to make the decision to heal from it because it's a choice that I have to make. Correct. So that's how, and it's a process. And I always share for every infraction, it's gonna take on average about 2 years. So don't even sit here and think a month later he gonna be over it because it's not gonna happen that fast. Right. And then you have multiple infractions. I'm not saying 3 times 12 or nothing, but just the more infractions that your partner discovers, it's gonna be a process. It's gonna be a lot of work, and it's not always fun. It's a process.
But if you have to want to put in the work,
absolutely.
So
absolutely,
it just depends on how bad you want it.
Yeah. What you put
or
into
if it's
it
worth
is what you
keeping.
Get out. Exactly. But for some people, they feel like, and I say it's never my place unless it's incredibly toxic.
I'm reading that comment. That's why I just leave.
Yeah, that's why I just leave. Yeah.
Some people do that. Some people do that.
It's hard. You're right, Darrell. It's very, very hard when the trust is gone. And especially if the sex was good, it's like, dang, why you gotta go out and do that?
They say I want to share it with the world. That's what they
now it's in my mind. You've been with her over there.
And it gets real sometimes too. Yeah. And the intensity is like, whoa, times I have to ask somebody, like when I used to see him in person, like if you need to take a breather, because I know one time I was like, oh gosh, she about to hit him, please don't, so she just walked out. And I said, that's the best thing you can do because we don't want to get to that space. But I totally understand.
Yeah, there's a lot of hurt. I found myself that as far as sex, it really is my mind. How if I'm with someone and you cheated on me and we're trying to work it out, you're right. I'm glad you said that because it's me forgiving as well, actually forgiving and going through those steps, and it gets hard. It gets really, really tough out here. What do you guys want to leave the listeners with? I want to talk to the single ladies. Valentine's Day just passed a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of ladies out there and a lot of men also didn't have their Valentines. What would you suggest for them to spice up their life, Dr. Cooper Lovett?
For a single person, how to spice up their own life, get in touch with themselves, because I feel like, oftentimes people say, oh, I prayed for somebody to come to me, but I say, pray, be ready for them, so it starts with you, and be spicy with yourself, indulge in those good sex toys from Bedroom Candy, explore yourself. And so when you do meet that partner that yourself so well sexually that it's like, oh yeah, I can run this down for you. I got a blueprint for you. Yes. So we don't have, and exploration in addition to that is always good as well.
I agree. What about you, Michelle Renee?
I'm right with Dr. Cooper that absolutely it starts with you. I personally, I used to make a date with myself. You all in my mind. I have a great dinner. I have a glass of wine. I'm gonna run me some bubble bath. And then after that, I'm going to get my favorite toy. And I'm going to have a magnificent orgasm. And then I'm going to go to sleep.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to sleep. So I'm all for it. Learn your body so that you can tell somebody exactly where to go and how to do it. So
great evening. This is a great evening. Tell everybody where they can find you, Dr. Cooper Lovett, if they are interested in your services and telehealth. Where can they find you?
At newcreationpsychotherapy.com. That's where it can go. And then also on Instagram, it's in the Creation PSY as well.
And again, let the listeners know what services you offer, because it's not just sex. It's not just about sex.
No. So it's individual, couple, and family therapy, specializing, work with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and couples, as well as helping them connect, infidelity recovery, as I shared earlier, in addition to sex therapy as well. Okay. And tantra as well. I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
Okay. Thank you so much. And Michelle, Renee, where can they find you if they are interested in Bedroom Candy or any of your services, the virtual parties? Where can they find you?
Okay, so I have a whole lot of stuff. So I think I gave the producer the link to my Bedroom Candy Facebook group, because that is one great group. It's Bedroom Candy by Michelle Renee is the name of the group. You can email me at candyparty2, the number 2, at gmail.com. So that's candy with a K, party2 at gmail.com.
And I love the Facebook group that she has. You will get some laughs out of there. You will get some education in there. It is a very open forum. I'm so happy that you created that space. I've not seen any judgment. And when I tell you there's questions and memes in there about any and everything you can think about as far as sex or things that you may be wondering about, it's in that group. So if you're looking to join a fun group it's non-judgment zone. I've never seen any type of judgment in that group. Make sure you hit that up. It's Bedroom Candy by Michelle Renee, correct?
Michelle Renee, and that's Michelle with 1 E and Renee with 1 E.
Great. Great. Thank you, ladies, so much for being a part of Think and Grow. That's right. Don't bring your old relationship into your new one. You're so right. Isn't that a huge issue? Oh my goodness, we can talk on and on about that. It is such a huge issue. Can't bring your ex into your next. So thank you, ladies, so much again for joining us. It is. And you know what? I have so many great things coming, you guys, this month and the months later. So on March 8th, I have one of my favorite artists, Rachel J. Actually, she's the incoming song. She's the artist that wrote that song. I love her work ethic. I love her grind. She's right here in Chicago. Rachel J is going to be on March 8th. And then on the 22nd, I have a very special show about abuse, narcissism. Get ready for that show, you guys. I have a woman coming on to talk about her story, her testimony about what she experienced as far as abuse and how she was able to overcome that. So stay tuned, you guys. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the Evening Network. We're coming. This is a family right here, and we're going to have some great things coming down the pipeline for you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the Evening Rush Network, and big shout outs to my producer, Don. I appreciate you so much, brother. God is good. God is good. Any last words again, ladies, before we hang this up?
No, I thank you so much. This was fun. It was so nice to meet you.
Yes, likewise. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I may be calling you guys back to come on again. I really want to bring some great content to Think and Grow with Vette Green. Just I wanted to be a teacher, so if I can reach and teach people through this platform, to God be the glory. To God be the glory. We got to talk about sex, you guys. We got to talk about it.
Yes, we do. All the time.
All the time. There's nothing wrong with talking about it. And if you have not experienced an orgasm, hit these ladies up. They may be able to help you. Okay, you should be experiencing an orgasm. It is a release.
For sure.
We're signing off. Thank you guys so much. Come back next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Make sure you come back. Stay tuned. I love you guys.
Okay.